Pleasant afternoon again, fellow Rotarians, guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rotarian Chris Ferrareza, and I am your moderator for this afternoon's meeting. Before we start the program, please allow me to read a few house rules for the orderly proceedings of our meeting. Number one is, please be advised that microphones of non-program participants will be muted to help keep the background noise to a minimum. May we request the visiting Rotarians and guests to please type in the comment box your name, your club or affiliation, or the Rotarians who invited you to participate in this meeting, so we can properly acknowledge you later in the program. For our open forum, after the talk of the speaker, in case you want to ask a question, please use the raise hand button or simply notify us by typing in the comment box. Alternatively, you may want to type in your questions and we will try to accommodate it during the Q&A. Lastly, please don't leave yet after the response of our president, as we will have our group photo off with our speaker. Now, let me call on LCP Louis Asioche and Rina Lopez to call this meeting to order.
A pleasant good afternoon. By the powers vested in me by the Rotary Club of Makati, I call this meeting to order.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. In behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati Premier District, I call this meeting to order.
All right, thank you, LCP Louis and LCP Rina. By the way, this is a joint meeting with RC Makati Premier District. Now let's go to the invocation, which will be led by Elizabeth Subias Hanadel of RCM Premier District. Please all rise.
Hello. Dear God, we invoke the blessing upon this meeting and on the people of goodwill everywhere. We may prove ourselves worthy citizens of our country, devoted to the truth, sincere in fellowship, given to service, and confident in steadfast faith. Preserve us faithful to these ideals. Let us stand firm when the fight is hard. Give us the strength sufficient for today and for the many days to come. Make us as big as our problems and to stay bigger than our responsibilities. God help us to live up to our capabilities. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Thank you.
Let us also offer a few minutes of silence for the eternal repose of Rotarian George Neri, who passed away recently. Okay, please remain standing for the national anthem, followed by the RC Makati hymn.
live to lead. We believe in service above self, and this is why we succeed. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way, giving hope to the world. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, giving hope to the world. The Rotary Club of Makati.
All right, you may now take your seats. This is, I think, the second of our hybrid meetings. So we have a number of Rotarians in the room and many more in the virtual room. Mr. PDGC would like to. Okay, yes. All right, may I get your attention again, fellow Rotarians? Kindly repeat after me the four-way test. These are the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And finally, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, fellow Rotarians. Now let's go to greetings to birthday and a wedding anniversary celebrators. We have today celebrating his birthday, Pipi Tito Panlilio, May 17. Is he here in the room? Rotarian Julian Lim, May 19. Happy birthday. Pipi Fred Nasser, May 22. All right, so happy birthday, fellow Rotarians. Now let's go to the acknowledgement of guests and visiting Rotarians. We have some very special guests today, starting off with His Excellency, Swiss Ambassador Alain Gaschen. Welcome, sir. He's the guest of our very own PP David Ackerman. And of course, the guest of our director, Philip Sullivan, and soon to be a member of the club, Attorney Mans Tumanda. And also Ambassador Gaschen is soon to be a member of our club. Welcome, sir. Okay, now for the dignitaries, we have PDG Tony Kila, sir, PDG Sid Garcia. For the Rotary Ants, we have FA Tess Asioche. I believe she's in the virtual room. And of course, in the room, Ann Machi Ackerman. Ann Nelly Benson, I suppose also in the virtual room, and Ann Yvonne Kwan. For the life-changing presidents, Tessa Bola of RC Las Piñas West. We also have Dale Padrilanan of RC Parañaque Southwest. Other guests, are as follows. Neil Macasiar is also an incoming member. Perhaps he's in the virtual room. We have PP Dacomos of RC Makati Bel Air, PP Maria Teda Colliantes, RC Paranaque St. Andrews, PP Pritz Ocampo, RC Rizal West, CP Glenn Goko, and Gian Tan. And of course, who will be properly introduced later on, Professor Victor Andres Manhit, our guest speaker. Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. We'll have a turnover of donation to Sanlakbay program. But before that, we'll have PDGC first for a special announcement.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. I have two announcements. First of all, I received sad news yesterday. And May Neri, the wife of George Neri, who is a doctor and a plastic surgeon, passed away recently. He is now at the Premier Room, Heritage Memorial Park. So those of you who can join them, the family, they will have a 6 p.m. Mass every day from the 16th to the 18th. And on the 19th, the cremation will take place at 10 a.m. Those who will not be able to join us can go via live stream Zoom. I will be sending the announcements to Ron so he can post it in our Viber group. Now for some pleasant news, I just received advice from the Rotary Foundation that we have just our district through a very generous donor from our club and also from the Rotary Club of Makati Business District. David and Mache Ackerman have just put up a directed gifts fund in the amount of $40,000. And we'd like to thank again Mache and David for this generosity. This fund will now be implemented by our clubs and to be used directly for basic education and literacy. Congratulations, Mache and David.
Thank you, PDG Sid, and congratulations, Ann Mache and PP David Ackerman. Now let's go to the next part of our program, which is the turnover of donation to Sanlakbay program. They are not here yet, so we'll go to the next part. This is the favorite part of the program of most of the Rotarians. PDG Gold Tony, PDG Tony Kila for the PHF recognition, sir.
Thank you. At least I still have club members joining me in my table.
Why?
For lunch. And our president no longer gets trauma when he sees me. Now may I call on our president to pin the Paul Harris pin on Don Carlo Ibanez. Carlo, thank you for your Paul Harris donation.
Okay.
Thank you, Gov. Tony, and congratulations, Rotarian Don Carlo Ibanez. All right, so let's now go to the President's time. Let's hear the messages of LCP Louis, followed by LCP Rina.
Thank you very much, Chris. Nice to see you again. I've been missing you lately. So welcome home. Welcome home, gentlemen. This is the second time we are holding our regular meeting in our home, the Rotary Club of Makati Clubhouse. The first was during the visit of RIVP Valerie Wafer on April 27. With alert levels being maintained at level 1, we continue to look forward to the day when we can get back to how we normally hold our meetings, with which we were almost comfortable and familiar with. After all, going back to in-person gatherings, whether here at home in our clubhouse or at the Manila Pen, would keep alive the spirit of fellowship and service that bind us Makati Rotarians into one happy family. Welcome to our guest speaker, Professor Dindo Manhit, whom we have invited to give us sort of a post-mortem on the just concluded election, whose official results we still await, even though the proverbial fat lady might have already finished her song. We are very interested to know how the pre-election surveys created an impact on the recent electoral exercise. Professor Manhit, thank you. Welcome also to our Swiss ambassador, His Excellency Alain Deschen. I understand that PP David Ackerman has already given you our club nomination form, sir. We will be truly honored to have the Swiss flag added to our banners during our meetings, although we do not have the banners now, unfortunately, because we had barely started with our face-to-face meetings. And also, of course, another prospective member, Attorney Mans, Pañero, thank you. This is the second time we're going to meet each other. So I hope you're able to do whatever, fixed stuff for you to be able to join us soon. All right, so I'd like to welcome also our daughter club, the RCM Makati Premier District, whose members, led by LCP Rina Lopez, are joining us today. Okay, last April 27, we turned over to the PPCRV a donation amounting to 500,000 pesos to support the PPCRV's command center and its parallel count right after the elections. This is the third part of our partnership with PPCRV, which started during the term of immediate past President Peter Manzano with the voters registration campaign. Our club logo was flashed on screen as one of the bond sponsors of the PPCRV. Allow me to share the recorded video message of Chairperson Myla Villanueva.
Hello, Rotary Club of Makati, Rotarians and Rotaractors, President Louis, IPP Peter. I am here at the PPCRV Command Center at the UST with Rotarian.
Hello.
Doc Arwin.
Thank you very much.
Yes. We're preparing very hard, and we really would like to thank you. We cannot do this without our friends and sponsors, and Rotary has been an incredible friend to the PPCRV. We'd like to invite you to watch us on May 9 as we work here in the command center to present the results of our election to our country. We have about 500,000 volunteers who again would like to thank you for supporting us and being with us on May 9. So thank you again. God bless Rotary Club of Makati, and God bless our country. Thank you.
That was the PPCRV Chair, Myla Villanueva. My thanks also to the 17 members and aunts who participated in the district conference at the Marriott Grand Ballroom last April 30. Special thanks to past District Governor Sid Garcia, past President David Ackerman, President-elect Michael Escaler, and President nominee designate Keith Harrison for being gracious sports and acceding to my request for them to perform in our cluster dance presentation that won us the first runner-up award. Go, Sid, do not do that again. Jumping from the stage to the dance floor. Don't do that again. Tesha will really strangle me. Oh, there you go. Gob, Sid, and a host of others, including P. Mike, are in their sleeveless macho attire. Congratulations to the Paul Harris Fellows and milestone donors who were feted that evening. I would also like to acknowledge with thanks those who participated in the DISCON program. Past District Governor Peps Benson, who moderated the panel discussion, past President, and hopefully soon, District Governor Reggie Malibo, on his report on the impact of global grants, and past District Governor Sid Garcia delivered the remarks of the District Rotary Foundation Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. You did us all proud. Then, 2 days after the DISCON, I joined 9 other life-changing presidents who were invited by life-changing Governor Georgie Tan as her official party for the visit of RIVP Valerie and her spouse Mark to Puerto Princesa in Palawan. Chairperson DCC Doris and Soma prepared a grueling but very inspiring 3-day activity for the delegation. Upon arrival on May 2, the entourage, after a quick lunch at Kainato, went straight to the site of a global grant at the Ihawi Penal Colony and tree planting at the Balayan Park before having dinner at Ka Joel. The following day, the group departed for a 2-hour trip to Langogan for the emergency housing project and water station. After a quick program, the entourage went to Barangay Tanabat for a groundbreaking of a daycare center. The group then had a late lunch at Bahay Tuluyan at Barangay Macarascas, where the donation of then Governor Sid Garcia was among those who were cited by one of the nuns who hosted us that lunch. No sooner had we had our fill, but we immediately went to visit the Bahili Habitat Project of RC Makati GP Rizal, where the village residents manufacture citronella oil as a source of their livelihood. The busy day was capped by a relaxing fellowship at a private beach resort owned by the spouses, past President Bobby and Angie Castro. The third day, May 4, saw some of the members of our group do a city tour, while the rest of us took the occasion to visit the Subterranean River National Park, and dinner was hosted by DCC Doris at Dang Marias. On the last day, May 5, I paid a visit to the fishermen who received the motor engines we commissioned to repair after the onslaught of Typhoon Odette. The repair of 20 motorboat engines was part of the Andar Buhay project of RC Puerto Princesa, which we supported. Needless to say, the fishermen were very grateful for our help, even as they asked us to continue helping their community with provisions for fishing nets and 10 fishing boats, which can no longer be repaired. Then, last weekend, right after the national elections break, I, together with PND Keith Harrison, his Aunt Rachel, and life-changing President Gigi Uy of RC Makati Dasmariñas, went to San Narciso Zambales for an oral health mission for the elderly in Barangay Omaya. Please allow me to share with you the RCM video news of this project in Barangay Omaya, San Narciso, Zambales.
The past weekend saw President Louis Asioche, PND Keith Harrison and Ann Rachel, and President Gigi Uy Wong of RC Makati Dasmariñas pushing the 2 pillars that fortify Rotary: service and fellowship. They went to San Narciso, Zambales for an oral health mission in partnership with RC Makati Business District, led by LCP Rachel. It also served as an opportunity to check out Zambo Wood, the lovely boutique beach resort owned by the Harrisons, and see the artworks of their extremely talented son, Julian. After a late-night arrival at Zambo Wood, the group motored off the following morning to Barangay Omaya, which featured a 30-minute drive through a dirt road. Barangay Omaya was the site of an oral health mission for the elderly. They arrived to see some 30 adults, mostly seniors, gathered at the site, eagerly awaiting the start of the project. The event started with a short program emceed by LCP Rachel.
Omaya po is napakaganda. It's one of the poorest here in San Narciso, Zambales. Pero hindi nakikita dahil ang daming taong nagmamahal sa inyo. Tama po ba? At ito ang pinakamalayong barangay dito sa San Narciso.
President Louie spoke about oral health and the importance of the project.
Kaya pinili namin ang Barangay Umaya kasi sinabi po ni aking classmate si President Rachel na ito isa sa mga liblib na lugar na kailangan natin puntahan at ang serbisyo ng Rotary ay makaabot po dito sa inyo. Kaya
And LCP GG brought home the message that practicing good oral hygiene is important to one's overall health.
Okay, so nandito po ako dahil magkakaroon po tayo ng konting orientation. Kapag natanggap nyo na po ang inyong mga postiso, paano nyo po ito aalagaan?
The oral health mission is different from the usual dental mission conducted by clubs. What sets it apart is the provision of free dentures to selected beneficiaries who have not had a full set of teeth for years. RC Makati believes that providing full dentures to the beneficiaries is a lifetime gift for which they will remember and thank the club for as long as they live, or at least for as long as the dentures stay in place.
Mi casa is su casa.
RC Makati would like to thank the Harrisons for the overnight accommodation at Zambo Wood and for the healthy meals they served. Zambo Wood is a modern boutique beach resort that offers a place of fun and function, and offers not only a visual feast of glowing sunset at the beach, but also the exemplary art pieces of Julian Harrison and other artists as well, and the mementos from several trips by the Harrisons. This free dentures project is the second mission of its kind by the Rotary Club of Makati. The first, which was done 2 months ago in Rotary Homes, included an oral health seminar and the distribution of dental hygiene kits, in addition to conducting fittings for and distribution of dentures to the elderly. PND Kith and LCP Rachel will return to San Narciso next week to distribute the dentures to those who had their fittings last weekend. The residents of Barangay Omaya are profuse with thanks to the Rotary Club of Makati for bringing them back their smiles and the means to enjoy once again their meals.
Maraming salamat, Rotary! Serve to change lives!
That was nice. I would like to express again my thanks to Keith and Rachel for accommodating us in their lovely, lovely resort and for the chance to immerse in the quaint beauty of Zamba Wood and that of Zambales. And finally, special thanks to Charter President Mache Ackerman for inviting our club members and our aunts to her book launch and birthday celebration at the Cove in Okada Hotel. We have more attendees there than our usual fellowship, which shows the club members' support to you, CP Mache. Again, happy birthday and congratulations to you. By the way, next meeting will be a joint meeting with RC Makati Business District, and in line with our gradual phase in back to our face-to-face club meetings, we might have that meeting next Tuesday at the Manila House, as soon as CP Mache finalizes everything. So this will be at Manila House. Our speaker would be Manny Herbosa, who will be talking about the role of the DBP under the new administration. GovSip was instrumental in getting Mr. Herbosa to be our guest speaker. Thank you very much. That's my time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to the Rotary Club of Makati for inviting the Rotary Club of Makati Premier District to a joint meeting. This is the first face-to-face meeting that we are hosting, and I'm actually even now not just the only one, because welcome, Raisa Genova Casadas, with the other members on Zoom. I hope that we can host more face-to-face meetings with more on-site participation very soon. Welcome to our distinguished guests. I'm especially happy that our first speaker today is an education advocate, and actually whom I met 23 years ago when he was Undersecretary of the Department of Education from 1998 to 2001. So welcome, Dindo Manhit. We, the Rotary Club of Makati Premier District, celebrated its 5th year as an organization last April 28 at the Echenova residence. Thank you, PP Raisa, for your hospitality and for offering your home to be the venue of our second.
Alis ko muna ako. Pagpagawa ko yung CRD ni Sergio.
Of that face-to-face meeting. It is a night of honor. We awarded our charter members, and our adopted de facto club advisor, PDG Peps Bengson, and our donors, David and Mache Ackerman. We missed my classmate, LCP Louis, but yeah, he was very ably represented. All of them have consistently shown dedication to the ideals of Rotary. Since the club's inception, their participation and contributions made a big difference in what we are today. A solid and vibrant club, ever more passionate about uplifting Filipino lives. Thank you for your hard work and dedication and support to our club and for the work we do. Not on the slide, I wish I had also video and pictures because at the DISCON, we also won first runner-up for our dance number. While you were Bridgerton, right? We were Mamma Mia. And Mache, you joined us, right? Yeah, so we're very happy about that. Thank you for those that danced with us. And to those that participated and actually went to the DISCON that day. Next slide, please. On June 11th, we will be having our club recognition night, where RCM will be recognizing our members who have greatly contributed to the club, to our service projects, and to the community we serve during my term. Without their support, RCM would not have accomplished and achieved what we did this year. The work ensures that we will not just survive, but thrive as a club. And I'm grateful to each and every one of our members. One of the service projects that we did, which I'm sorry, I don't also have a slide for that now, but we did recently was to provide tablets, digital to grade 1 students in Marikina who will be learning from the knowledge channels, Basa Bilang, Wika Harian, and Ready Set Read programs. No? These are for Filipino and English because we realize that literacy is really something that needs to start very young. And so we've given about 22 tablets. No? So thank you so much. Next slide, please. We're also now finally pushing through with our most awaited charity golf tournament this June 24 at Canlubang Golf and Country Club, North Course, Calamba, Laguna. And I'm inviting everyone to please come and join us in this meaningful and fun event. How many of you are golfers? One, two. Yeah, thank you, Michael, for your sponsorship. And Tito Panlilio. It's his birthday, right? But he's not here. Yeah. But thank you. And if any of you also want to sponsor, we're open to the sponsorships, and we're open, and please join us as participants and players as well. We have 3 sponsorship levels. And 5,000 pesos for play for 5,000 for non-Canlubang Golf Club members and 3,000 for club members. This includes green fees, golf cart, lunch, and valuable raffle prizes. Proceeds of this golf event will go to 1, continue to help in the holistic area development of our newly adopted community, the people from the coastal town of Lagadlarin, Labo, Batangas, which of course has been adversely affected by typhoons and the pandemic. Second, to continue to support basic education and literacy by providing professional development services to more caregivers, parents, and teachers, and help to nurture children better during their formative years. No? Early childhood for us is a very important time, a critical time for learning, for nutrition, social protection, and responsive caregiving. And thirdly, to continue to support breast and cervical cancer screening and treatment. We recently handed over 2 mobile clinics to the Philippine Cancer Society, and we'll bring these buses to many more communities, saving the lives of women and their families. Your generous participation in this charity golf tournament will help change the lives of many people. Please join us and change life trajectories. We look forward to seeing you there. Next slide. Oh, sorry. It's on June 24. Yeah. Moving forward, I'd like to request our club members to please block off the following dates for the events of 1, the induction of our President-elect Lea Quesada on July 3, and our annual strategic planning on July 9 to 10. And the time and venue to be announced once they are finalized. Next slide, please. I'd like to call or turn you over to PP Research Nova Posadas for district membership announcements. Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. It's so nice. Good afternoon. So nice to be back here and say hi to a lot of very familiar faces. I cannot see that far, so I have to look through my screen here. So anyway, on behalf of the district membership team, actually the incoming district membership team, I'd like to invite everybody to attend this talk tomorrow. It's by Tom Gump. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a past district governor from Minnesota. And he's now sort of like the guru because he has set up all these new flexible clubs. No, he began with forming a club for veterans, and then now there's more than 12 veterans clubs around the world. He also set up the first environmental cost club. And again, there have been dozens that have been set up. And he also put up a club against human trafficking. And if you recall, 2 years ago, our RI president then was Mark Maroney. And Mark Maroney called up Ted Gump one day and said, you have been able to convince my sister to join a club. I've been trying to convince her for 40 years to join Rotary, and she refused to join. But she's based in Turkey, and she found out that Minnesota had set up this club against human trafficking. And so she joined because, you know, it's obviously it's global, that was really her advocacy. So we're going to have Tom Gump here to speak not just about forming these new clubs, but also the new strategies now for attraction. As I'm sure you're all aware, no, we're still 1.2 million for the past 20 years. We haven't really increased membership in Rotary. So there seems to be an issue not so much with attraction, but really retention, because every year worldwide, we get about 150,000 new members, and the same year we lose about the same. And the worst thing is that most of them actually leave in the first 2 years. So as they said, no, during the discount, some of you attended, RI Director Valerie and RI Director Jesse were saying that, you know, it seems that we don't have an attraction problem, we have a retention problem. So anyway, so he's going to be talking about some retention strategies as well. Okay, next slide, please, Ron. Okay, so aside from Tom Gump, we have track 2. We have 3 case studies, very short only. So we have somebody from Makati West who will be presenting. He's the incoming club membership chair. He's going to be talking about how his own proposal to offer corporate memberships in his club. So, you know, just like a golf club, you have corporate memberships, and you pay a premium for that. So now let's see how he's going to structure the corporate membership that he's proposing to his club. So it's interesting because it's just his proposal. So it's his job to pitch it to his board and to the rest of his club. And then we have the lady on the left. She is the charter president of the newest club in our district. It's called Taguig One Global. But actually, Taguig One Global is the first cost-oriented club in our district. They will be focusing on inclusive education, focusing on how to help PWDs enter the job force. So they'll be focusing on high school children who are differently abled and helping them develop such that they can now be very good, get good jobs and things like that. And then on the right side, on the middle, we have P.E. Nikki, who's from Makati San Lorenzo. She will be presenting also her ideas in terms of forming a club, a cost-based club based in Palawan. It's interesting that they've had this project for many years. There's this gentleman, there's this doctor who's actually from Manila, but he just decided to give up everything here, his cozy life here, and go to Palawan. And so this is a story of how they are thinking of forming a cost-based club with this doctor who is focusing on malnutrition. Some of you that have been to Palawan are familiar that Palawan was very bad in terms of food and nutrition. And I remember Brother Amin was my classmate. Brother Amin used to say that, you know, the status of education in Palawan is worse than even in Mindanao because of the food situation in Palawan. So anyway, so that was the interesting story. So I'd like to invite you to join us tomorrow. We're sending out the links now. Next page, Ron. Next page. Okay, so, you know, usually the membership development seminar is just one session of 3 hours, everything cramped in it, no? So we decided this year, because membership is now the #1 internal priority of Rotary, is to do it in a series of 5 sessions. So we're now in our second session. Tomorrow is our second session. We're going to have the next 3 focusing on retention, and another one focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. RI has made a very strong commitment to DEI going forward, and so there'll be a separate session just on that, and another session in elevating Rotaract. As you know, Rotaract is now a membership type. They're not just a selling pusa on the side, and they're now trying to see how they can elevate Rotaract. So that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, LCP Louie, LCP Rina, and PP Raisa Echanova Posadas for those updates. Before we proceed to the main part of the program, well, I hope those who are attending via Zoom are hearing us clearly now. Ron, have you fixed that? All right. So before we proceed to the next, to the main part of the program, let's first have the turnover of donation to Sanlakbay program. And here with us this afternoon is Dr. Arwin Serrano, representative of Sanlakbay program. President Louie. Oh, thank you, President Louie, and welcome, Dr. Arwin Serrano. Okay, to introduce our guest speaker, I believe he is attending via Zoom. We have, please welcome, PP Fred Pascual.
Thank you. Fellow Rotarians and guests, we are fortunate to have Professor Victor Andres Dindo Manhit as our guest speaker today. He is very much sought after as a speaker for his thought-provoking commentaries on Philippine current events, like our recently concluded national elections. Just before coming here to join us this afternoon, he spoke at a forum on legislative reforms organized by the Joint Foreign Chambers in the Philippines and the Philippine Business Groups, which I also attended. Professor Dindo has a long CV, but in the interest of time, let me give you some highlights of his engagements. He is the founder and managing director of Stratbase Group, a research and strategic advisory consultancy firm, and president of its policy think tank, Stratbase Alberto del Rosario Institute for Strategic and International Studies. Since 2004, he has identified investments and business opportunities, gathered critical intelligence to overcome regulatory challenges, and developed deep relationships in key departments and agencies in government. Concurrently, he is also the country head of Bauer Group Asia, a strategic advisory firm that specializes in the Asia Pacific, advising companies on their legislative and regulatory engagement and strategic communications posturing. Previously, Professor Dindo was chair and associate professor of Political Science Department at the De La Salle University, Manila. So the incoming president of the country was his, also associated with De La Salle. Among the government positions he held include Undersecretary of Department of Education, as earlier mentioned by President Rina, and Deputy Secretary for Administration and Financial Services at the Philippine Senate. At the Senate, he also served as Chief of Staff of a Senator and a Senior Policy Advisor in key Senate committees such as Education, agriculture, economic affairs, social justice, and electoral reforms. After his stint in government, he became involved with many different consortiums and networks of civil society groups. Professor Dindo and I are colleagues at the Institute of Corporate Directors and at the Management Association of the Philippines. And he is also a product of my favorite university, the University of the Philippines. Fellow Rotarians and guests, let me give you Professor Dindo Manhit.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Sir Pascual, thank you so much. A good friend of my father. So good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Allow me to share my thoughts with regards to what we had a recent national election, exactly a week and 2 days, or a week and a day ago. But I wanted to use this title, Thinking Beyond Politics, because that's what we lack after elections in the Philippines. I'm one of those who believe that if we can only be strategic as a nation, that elections be competition of ideas, competition of platforms, but beyond that, we should start thinking about how do we compete outside our borders? How do we protect Philippine national interest? We're proud in our tradition that in Stratbase, since 2004, our analysis is always data-driven. I emphasize that because I have a lot of friends who like to come out on TV, commenting, analyzing based on the latest headline, even though they're academics. Because I don't know why they don't like to spend time or investing in trying to analyze what transpired. So allow me to share data from our two partners, Social Weather Station and Pulse Asia. So what we saw, just a joke, so that my friends from the pink side might get mad at me. The surveys won over the drones. Because we have nice drone pictures, but there's a science behind elections. And so LA knows who, they produce good pollsters from Switzerland. The pollster of Marcos. So allow me, what are the issues that the Marcos administration faces? This was as of March. He will be inheriting a political environment that has as a key concern economic issues. Beyond the pandemic, and these concerns, we can sum it up into three things: presyo ng bilihin, prices, jobs and wages, poverty, which includes hunger, and governance issues. These top issues is where President Duterte has failed. Again, and I will use science. President Duterte claims that he has a 70% approval rating. Check, that's true, but they don't like to quote the following page of the survey. The following page of the survey is this sign. So every time that's asked, how do you rate the president? We always ask with Pulse Asia, how do you rate him based on issues? And look at those numbers, below 50% on some issues. So incoming President Marcos will need to deal with these issues. It seems that this kind of issues seem to be what the Filipino people was asking for also. When we ran this question last February at the start of the campaign. So you see some consistency. That though we are dealing with this long, prolonged health crisis, it's the economic consequences that needs to be addressed fast by the incoming administration. When you look at my next slide, we did this, so it's not through Social Weather Station, did not run a survey. As Dr. Mga has played with simple words, they did not post the results. because to have it, you have to pay for it. And that's what we mean by it's good to analyze using data. So in Stratbase, we pay for those data. But in this case, we run this, we sponsor the whole survey, which was the first number that came out in October. But again, these are other questions that we ran. As early as October, economic was an issue. Remember, this was after filing. Job creation, basic commodities, corruption, education, and health issues. Across geographic area, across age groups. So that means this cuts across the Filipino people's concern. And as you go deeper, there's this consistency. So the question should be, can government or is the incoming government ready to deal with this? Will unity address these issues? The message of unity, which is what we simply heard from the candidate or incoming president, former Senator Marcos Jr. So moving to my next slide. And I wanted to share this because the private sector pre-pandemic was vilified by the outgoing administration. They even wanted to create, I call it the populist nature or the divisive nature of the politics of Dutertismo, style of governance, style of politics. But it shows how the private sector is seen as a partner. And when we say the private sector, we're referring to business groups, we're referring to private corporations, but also we're referring to clubs, civic organizations. That the public across geographic area, across demographic, across education attainment seem to look at the private sector positively. So the attack on them, remember the 2019 attack on the two private sector group. They were blamed for water shortage when their job is water distribution. And water is supplied by government. I hope we go beyond that kind of politics. You cannot blame the private sector that creates the jobs. Tell me, when did the government create jobs? That was during the time of former Mr. Marcos, when we had state corporations. It's a private sector that does it. Also, investment in infrastructure is basically what the people are telling us. So PPP is accepted, and it's good to hear from different presidential candidates how they value PPP. Because what we saw this past 5.5 years, ODA from China, can anybody tell me what happened there? Nothing. Nothing. All hype, 26 billion investment. PPP is basically what all the projects inaugurated by President Duterte. The bridge in Cebu, the extension of the Skyway, and all other big projects. The build was simply building farm-to-market roads, provincial roads, but the big infrastructure were PPP of the previous government. But if you notice, they don't mention the private sector. Even the bridge in Cebu, I find it fascinating. I'm involved in that consortium. No mention of the proponent. And the national government even did not have a role in that. It was the local governments of Cebu. So I hope we learn our lessons moving forward. And I see the incoming administration is more open to PPP with some of the pronouncements. Also in terms of digital infrastructure, I think that's my next slide. It's been a fascinating story about the Philippines. In 2019, we blamed the slow transmission of votes. Now we blame the fast transmission of votes. The story there is those machines, they attach 4G technology. That's why the votes came as fast as people were not expecting. But I'm just saying that if government invests on technology, then we will see something positive. But we're the only country whereby it's the private sector that builds digital technology. Considering we have a DICT. considering the different government agencies involved in technology. So imagine if you have the private sector on one hand and the government spending on digital technology. And digital technology is very important as we shift towards that direction. I just wanted to share some of these issues because these issues will tell us what is being demanded by the public. Elections is always about voters. Governance is always about citizens. And it's good to listen to them and provide service, programs, projects based on what they want. Now I'll tell you why President or incoming President Marcos won. These are the characteristics that Filipinos were looking for. Let's stop for 30 seconds, a few seconds maybe. Who do you picture when you see these characteristics? For the Filipino people, that's Bongbong Marcos. That's Bongbong Marcos. And my next slides will show that. Sorry. When you look at it, it's untarnished characteristics, untarnished reputation, and not corrupt. Has a clear program or platform of action. Has extensive experience in governance. Characteristics, again, voter-centered, voters' perspective. We break it down, same period time, so we wanted to be more specific and we compared it among other candidates. Nearly 30%, 20% higher than VP Leni Robredo. You cannot question surveys and data because you call it from people's perception. If people's perception is perceived to be shaped by disinformation, that's a different presentation. I can tell you why these things are, but no camera. I'll tell you. And I have the data to support that. And I briefed the Catholic Church last August about it. The massive disinformation the past 6 years. But this is what came out. And again, as we hit, I think this was data of April. This is data of April, one of our last survey that we ran. When you look at the data, this is what people were looking for on the eve of voting. Because there was this 41% probability that people will change their vote. I think 20 or 17 to 20, high probability. 21, small possibility. But still, a possibility to change their vote. So people got excited when I was saying that. But people did not realize their perception might be different from the perception of the ordinary voters. Because that perception, that was majority of those, something that they're seeing in candidates, again, it's with Mr. Marcos, which is my next slide. Maybe if I'm allowed to walk, okay naman, kasi I'm worried about the camera. You don't need to see me anymore. So just with 56% of voters, so surveys are right because Marcos will end with 58% of the vote. 56%. Marcos was perceived as the one that can address important issues. More than a VP Leni. He can change many things for the better. More than VP Leni again. Who at 23% has lower, not even majority of his supporters saw her with this type of characteristics. Has more accomplishment. Authentic and positive character traits. That's what you were dealing with. No. Sad to accept this kind of numbers, but I've been involved in elections since 1992. I don't say that much anymore in terms of my resume about that. I lived in Makati and I saw the rally. First thing my wife told me, who's been with me since we were younger, in my younger days running political campaigns. There was no massa in that rally. We saw that also in Ortigas, no massa. But that's a large number. Large number of people, energized, traveled to be there, stayed there for 11 to 11 in the evening. Possibly no, not same faces. Possibly not same faces, but no massa. But unique energy. And artistas don't convert votes. They entertain you to keep people staying in rallies. At mangiinis lang po ako. Baka mga artista. They endorse in the stage. Why did they not endorse in their social media account? I'm just analyzing things. Was it simply a commitment to sing, to dance? Not the Valencianos, they're related to Pangilinan, but others. No? So at times you get fascinated with things. No? And you see this difference, really, and more lower compared to others. No? 2,400. Don't worry about sample size. Everybody tries to be scientific about it. At 1,200, we can predict within 3 points. At 2,400, we can predict within 2 points. At 3,000, we can predict within 2 points. Just no different when you sell your products, your marketing campaigns. So I don't understand why everybody asks about sample size. Don't you ask sample size when your marketing team briefs you? So, and this is science. That's why we're called political scientists. Of course, it's distributed based on our geographic. 56% demographic, 56%, Marcos won 58%. Leni Robredo, 24%, she will get at least 28%. So surveys will not tell you who wins. Surveys will tell you how to do your job in the campaign. But what's wrong with the campaign? When you start questioning surveys and you rely on Google Trends. Google Trends might have predicted things in Europe. Why? Because in Europe, majority are middle class and they use Google. In the Philippines, majority are DNE. They use Facebook for their own purposes. They watch YouTube because we made education online. So they had access for the first time. We hit 92 million social media users. I'm quoting that because TikTok was not that important. It's the third. It's Facebook and YouTube. So if I would say there's disinformation, it could have happened there. Yan po ang reality. So going to my next slide. Imagine as early as October. Marcos, Sara Duterte, Isko Moreno, Leni Robredo, Manny Pacquiao, Ping Lacson. As early as October, Bongbong Marcos was even beating Sara Duterte. And you might ask why? Very simple. While VP Leni Robredo was fighting her case in the Supreme Court, Marcos was creating a story, telling a good story. And people accepted that story. Maybe not factual, but they accepted that story. Better story than the Dutertes. Better is the story. This is October. On issues, if you know my institute, we're the one who's been fighting China on the territory. Can you imagine Marcos is the best defender of China's interests? That's confusing for somebody like me, who has been in the forefront, even with the filing of the arbitral case by the chairman of my institute. Marcos was never part of our group. Marcos never even spoke, but that's what the perception is. Because something is being told to the voters. So I was telling media, mainstream media, that is a challenge for you now. Somebody is telling a different story than what you are reporting. What will be your role after the election? So going to my next slide. Marcos was #1 in terms of advertising. Sara Duterte also. So that means we call that the political advertising is clicking to the masses. It's attaching to the mind of the voters. We saw it also in social media. So that means these surveys that people are attacking had other questions below that you could have learned. And that's what surveys are. It tells you. It breaks down social classes. We broke this down up to the provincial level. In the interest of time, I will not share that anymore. Up to the provincial level, what people were feeling at the provincial level. I was just saying at the end, either my partner survey firms will close down after May 9, or because of the energy and data analytics will now be the dominant measurement of election, or science will prevail. Science prevailed. That's the problem. So if you want to engage in politics, go back to science and it will tell you. Don't stop talking about the US election and surveys did not read it so much. That's not true. Hillary Clinton beat Trump she lost in the Electoral College. What was measured was popular vote. So science was right. No? So at times people like to quote things which is not. So social media. And why is it important? I wanted to show this. This is the next set of slides. TV advertising and social media was neck to neck already. That's the power of social media in this election. Before it was television, radio advertising, but social media. What's the problem with social media? It's a one-way communication. With that one-way communication, people don't know they are accepting fake news because there's no discipline of editorial fact-checking. They simply receive and they think it's being sent to them by their friend. Maybe it is, but their friend might not realize where she or he got it also. So that's our problem with social media. I'm saying this now as private sector. If this government, this new government, this new incoming administration won this way, how will they govern? They will govern using this technology also. And that's where the danger is. What is the truth? Our perspective, factual. Their perspective, maybe not factual, but approved by majority of Filipinos. Next, please. Imagine in 2 elections, just 1% was shaped by social media as a source. 2% in 2016, that's Duterte. We hit 21% at the start of the campaign, and this might have gotten higher. That's how powerful social media was in this campaign. Next, please. And this was the 4 main narratives that the followers started sharing through their 60 influencers, bloggers. I'm part of the history who voted for the best president. Marcos is the most qualified. So they're telling that story among themselves. That's the bandwagon that they created. Judge me not by my ancestors, but by my actions. Famous line. But his campaign is about legacy. That means not his legacy, but the father. So their messages to address certain issues, but their messages to talk about the Marcos and even the Duterte legacy. And the unstoppable tandem, which is the inevitable win. That's why it was really a victory of local political machine and leadership against a volunteer-driven campaign. So much emotional, but not enough. And of course, biased mainstream media. Don't watch them. Don't listen to them. They're biased. Listen to SMNI. Marcos got interviewed there. What is SMNI? Kibuloy. So one interview was meant to justify that he was having himself interviewed. Shared and shared and shared. Or the acceptance of an interview by Tony Gonzaga or Boy Abunda. Oops, ABS-CBN talent, but they were doing it on their own. But from the perception of people, these are ABS-CBN talent. So again, that's really good strategy. He was being interviewed by media. No? So, and this, we saw this as early as 2016, the groups pushing and pushing this agenda. Next, please. Now, the challenge is, how do you turn unity into actual concrete programs? That's where the challenge is. Because it takes a lot to put substance to unity to address these programs that he identified during the campaign as his priority. So for your purposes and for the purposes of my talk this morning, I decided to try to go back in preparation for this talk to different statements that he issued, which is my next slide. He speaks of job generation, right? That's a right issue that needs to be addressed. He needs to accelerate industrialization, improve countries' tourism, digital infrastructure, PPP, so on and so forth. But for me, I just would like to wait for maybe the cabinet appointments and the programs that they will lay down after the cabinet appointments. It's really hard to understand what the direction is, but he gets or he got the mandate, and he needs to build on that. Next, please. Early this year, I used this title. I write this commentary in the Philippine Daily Inquirer and the Business World. Let's not squander another 6 years. Because that's what I saw with President Duterte, with all the hype. Thank you to the economic team. It's not as bad as it could have happened. But it showed during the pandemic. We need forward-looking governance. That's why I spoke of the need for strategic thinking. Elections are over. We need to think beyond politics. And part of that is private sector. You are key. Your club, your membership, your affiliation, you're key. It's time for the private sector not to wait for government to dictate on you. Offer yourself as a partner. And being a partner, also a solution to the problems of governance in our country. They cannot create jobs. And I'm speaking as a public administration professor for 26 years in LaSalle. That has been the argument. That's why we started using the word governance, not governing. Governance means you need to work together with other sectors. Our political leaders should realize that. Instead of what happened, it was all about President Duterte and how great he was. But at the end of the day, who came out to help? Who came out during the pandemic? Who took care of their employees? Private sector. So I said, and part of that also is we need to look at the outside world. I was interviewed by CNBC on the day of the election, and I said, at least if it's a Marcos, we might elect somebody more cosmopolitan than Duterte, who was a mayor. So hopefully he uses that time spent outside the country, the frequent trips, to understand outside our borders is what's important. We need to craft a foreign policy that will reflect our national interests. Aside from protecting our territorial integrity and our maritime rights, more importantly, how do we turn our Department of Trade and Industry and our trade attaches, our foreign diplomatic teams all over embassies to create economic opportunities inward. I call it economic diplomacy. We need to find that way. In right after the election, it was last Wednesday, I wrote about we need to build a Philippine nation because I speak of stakeholders. It has become a divisive, polarizing political environment. He wins based on PPCRV count for Arvin. So you're being attacked by experts all over. But we don't know who they are, who these experts are. There will be a random manual audit. After that, see the same numbers. Time to move forward. But moving forward doesn't mean we will not make government accountable, transparent, and demand responsiveness from them. They might have the mandate, but in a democratic process, we need to demand from them that they serve the Filipino people. That's why I call it legitimation. Legitimacy in winning. The hardest part is legitimacy in governing. When you have 6 years. I think the whole world is watching also because it's a fascinating. I got interviewed by CNN New York and it's fascinating and hard to explain what's happening to us. But it happened. As I've said, if you want a different discussion, why it happened, no camera. I will share the disinformation discussion. That's a different discussion. Thank you and good afternoon to everyone.
How do you want to turn off the camera? We're going to go off cam.
Because you don't know what I'm watching you on the web. The Catholic bishops about it. That's why they came out strong. Catholic schools.
All right. Thank you, Professor, for that very informative, insightful, and interesting analysis of the election. So we have the floor is now open for questions. Yes, PP Reggie. First
Professor,
question.
very interesting talk. So was Imelda correct? Is perception reality? Imelda is the one who said that.
Not really true. That's a political science term. That's a political communication term. Perception is reality. That's true.
So how, okay, so there's this truth, there's perception. Where do we go now? I mean, if for political exercises in the future, then what should the emphasis be?
We need to move back to more factual ways of analyzing our candidates. Because before, even though we might not like, there will always be populism, personality driven. But at least you compete with them using facts. They might spin, we used to say we spin a story, but it's still based on facts. But what we saw, we're not spinning a story anymore. We are telling a different story. And that's very dangerous. But that's the reality of social media. But to move forward is really to fight disinformation. One of my speakers in one of our seminars, Dr. Arwin, I have what I call democracy warriors. In our institute, we had 1,200 volunteers just fighting disinformation during the campaign. But we were alone because everybody wanted to wave a pink flag. They thought they're going to win by going to rallies and waving their cell phone with pink colors. They should have fought disinformation. Us, we just wanted to be objective. They raise it, we question it. We were working with Check.ph. Check.ph is a coalition of academics, media. Probably with Check.ph, again, we were just maybe 1,000 sharing it. Imagine if those 14 million voters of VP Lenny shared it. They did not. Because they thought watching the speech will win them the election. You fight disinformation by offering facts. There's enough facts out there. But nobody spent that much. Us, we did as part of our Democracy Watch project in our institute because we felt, but we were not lining up with one candidate or the other. We're simply saying this is the facts. It happened. These are issues that is identified by our economic history, by our political history. We need to do that. to move forward. If not, just like what I whispered, I was on live TV, May 9, I whispered this to Ted Filon and to Luchi Cruz of TV5. You allow this to happen because mainstream media even interviewed some of these influencers. You allowed them to speak on TV without realizing come 2022, they became actually political commentators. Who is Thinking Pinoy and others, these media bloggers? Nobody even checked there, but you allowed them to be in mainstream media. Then they got that credibility and built their own following. I'm a political analyst. I've been around since 1991. When I post something in social media, I joke my wife. When it's about our Lakwatch, I hit 400 of my friends and they like me. I speak about politics, I only hit 30. And I'm a political analyst. I talk around the world for the Philippines. So that means there's no interest on politics. So how can Robin Padilla have 5 million followers? Rafi Tulfo has 10 million followers. Thinking Pinoy has 2 million followers. Mocha Uson cannot even get elected in party list but has 1.5 million followers. Somebody invested on this type of machinery. That's not Bongbong Marcos. It's President Duterte. It was inherited by the coalition. That's why it's unity. That kind of machine was turned on to push an agenda, to push that perception. I have to stop myself. I might say things so much already. and the camera is.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Dindo, for that response. Allow me to read one of the questions in the chat box from Mr. or Rotarian Rodrigo Segura. What was so attractive and how was the Marcos campaign able to get the support of the masa?
What was most attractive was, so it's not Marcos would not have won if there was no unity. Marcos was, as of September, hitting 20 to 22%. The Duterte family, even though a 30% performance rating, I've always argued this publicly, was at 28 to 30%. So when they merged, which I was saying to VP Lenny, Isko Moreno et al., that is formidable. When they merged, they hit, and the first national survey that was run was a survey run by our company, Stratbase ADR Institute with Social Weather Station. They hit 47. Then Bongo stepped down in December. That had 10%. They hit 57. Because the candidate of Duterte is Bongbong Marcos. So the masa of Duterte transferred to Bongbong Marcos. If not for that, I would have felt if Sara ran, this would have been a tight race between Bongbong Marcos, Sara, and Lenny Robredo. Because we had that question last October. And VP Lenny was running third. But not big lead, 3% below Sara. Sara trying to catch up with Bongbong plus 4%. That would have been a nice battle. And what was the best, not best, but wrong analysis of the support of the other side, the VP Lenny camp. So I'll continue. It's not understanding that the masses of people have been shaped since December 2016. That one of the most distrustful administration is the Aquino administration. Even though facts does not support that. Problem was when the late Noynoy Aquino kept quiet, the one who carried the brunt of that attack is VP Lenny. So to be honest, it was really wrong for her to be the candidate. Because siya yung binubugbog at sinisisi sa kahirapan ng masa. Eh, mahirap ang masa, hindi ba dahil sa mga political oligarchs per congressional district? Aren't they having a hard time because of all the political dynasties? But they're seen as the ones providing patronage. So they're seen positively. So when the President Duterte had to create an enemy, they needed to create an enemy, the Aquino administration. But who became the face of the Aquino administration? VP Lenny. VP Lenny has an approval rating ranging from 40 to 44% only. And a trust rating within that range also. Why will you vote for somebody that you don't trust? Marcos was at 67% trust rating. So again, perception. Not factual, but it worked in the masses. Yan ang problem.
All right. Thank you, Prof. I think we can accommodate 2 to 3 more questions. President Louis, did you want to ask the question, or I can read the other questions here? Yes, PP Raisa. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. So you were saying that you were explaining the results of the surveys last September and last December. So at that point in time, was it already irreversible, or was it more that the Lenny campaign did not accept the results or did not have the resources to fight or to shift their campaign?
Could be both. Not irreversible, but this should have been the best scenario. Imagine where we are now. 28%, Marcos was 56, 57%. That is what we were predicting, but in a much, you'd say, worse scenario December, because she got hit on a ceiling, as we call it, 20%. So when I saw that data, I sat down with, it will show where my heart is, sat down with their team because they're my friends. And I said, you cannot get votes from Marcos. They will not turn to you. But still, they turned. We added 8%, right? But the best way to get the votes from Marcos is allow Isko Moreno to rise. Allow Pacquiao to rise in Mindanao and Visayas. Allow Isko Moreno to rise in Mega Manila. Then they will take away votes. Imagine if Isko Moreno took away 10, 15%. Pacquiao, who is from Mindanao, should have been encouraged to stay there. And they were slowly doing that. They were hitting Marcos already, that too. But every time they rise, who attacks them? The Lenny volunteers. Weird. Instead of, that's why totoo yung sabi ni Isko na mata pobre kayo eh. Because in social media, minamata talaga siya. So he ends up going down. The 28% of VP Lenny came from Isko and Pacquiao. Focus on the one on top. But they did not, because they're so pure-hearted that they believe they're the only one who are good people. But basically what the election tells us, not the perspective of majority of Filipinos. And it's not the fault of the campaign. It's the fault of the nature of the supporters of the campaign. Imagine attacking Pulse Asia. Pulse Asia was founded by Rapa Lopa. Pulse Asia predicted the victory of Noynoy Aquino. No, predicted the victory, the rise of VP Lenny. Dahil ba pangit ang resulta, atakihin na natin. President of Pulse Asia is a good friend of mine from LaSalle. He's a human rights activist more than these volunteers. Spent all his life fighting for that cause. And suddenly he tells the truth about service, he gets attacked. Or Dr. Mahar Mangaso predicted the victory of Cory Aquino in 1985. Predicted Aquino again in 2010. Predicted VP Lenny. He was being attacked by the Marcos camp the day after. But pag hindi maganda resulta, we attack. And that's what I always tell people. The moment you attack the surveys, it's a doomed campaign already. Because you cannot accept science. How do you measure 65 million volunteers? By the rallies that you see. The rallies you saw is what VP Lenny got. But we cannot see the other side. We cannot see the feelings of the waiters in this gathering now, or the people right outside your gates in Rotary. We cannot see them, only science. And they tell the truth. The poor people tell the truth. What's the problem with the house to house? The social media picture was ahead of the house to house. Mahilig magpalitrato. Do you think pumasok po sila? Sorry, I need to speak in Filipino. Pumasok sila sa eskinita. May COVID dun. All those nag-house to house. I've run campaigns. I never use middle class for house to house. I use people from the poor sector because they need jobs. And the people that they will talk to will be honest to them. The poor people are good people. And they will say, pag-iisipan po namin, that's already a sign na they're not with you. I don't know why there was no acceptance of that. No, there was no acceptance. Sorry, long answer.
All right, Professor Dindo. There are two questions from PP Harold, but I'll just read one of them, no? Because perception is real, as already been mentioned earlier. If you would have to advise the presumptive president, who could be the next Secretary of Finance, NEDA and BSP? Would you recommend to retain the current heads of DOF, NEDA, and BSP, and the DTI, DOT, etc.?
Of course, continuity is always good. And if not for the economic team, I think we would have been a failed nation by this time. But BSP will stay, that's a term. So Governor Jokno will be around. And Governor Jokno was a classmate in LaSalle Green Hills by the incoming president. I think with NEDA, Carl, who's a friend of mine, I don't think he would like to serve government under this leadership. So that will not happen. Maybe even Secretary Dominguez. So very important. Maybe somebody from the private sector for DOF. From the financial sector, maybe. On the economic side, would we like an economist? We have tried that through the years. That has worked because we have a strong NEDA bureaucracy. But somebody I was teasing because she was the only one left. Her family was the only one left supporting Marcos in Iloilo. The Garin family, Congresswoman Garin, not Janet, but Sharon, is actually the author of the Public Service Act, author of the Foreign Investment Act that opened, that liberalized our economy. I said, you might be you're the only remaining person in Panay Island that supported the Marcoses initially. So you should be open to serve. You have authored, because she's the current chairperson of Economic Affairs. And she got back to me a day ago or over the weekend. She said, they asked for my resume. So maybe. So I'm giving you a hint already on who they're talking to. The chairperson of Economic Affairs, Sharon Garin. Outgoing. She's on her third term.
Thank you, Prof. Any other question from the participants in the room? Otherwise, I'll read the question of one of the participants in the chat or in Zoom. No one? I think this is the final question then. From PP Fred Pascual. How come the negative comments of President Duterte on BBM did not have an adverse effect on them?
We call that in election inoculation. If he said that daily, weekly, monthly, it would have an effect. Or did he say it just to bring it out? And since it did not click, he served the purpose of Bongbong Marcos. So I see things differently. Just like in campaigns, we always tell candidates, sir, ma'am, baka may anak kayo sa labas, ilabas na natin. So this one, I think they saw it as a weakness. Who's the best person to say it? Marcos. If he is, why did he arrest him? Why did he put pressure on him? Maybe it's part of the story. And the perception is the president attacked, so he's not part of the president's campaign. But on one hand, he came out with a clean laboratory results. So basically, the issue was brought out. When? October. So far away from May 9. It's only us who remember that statement of the masses don't. Because that was never heard by the masses. Again, mainstream media, where the president said it, is different from social media, where stories are being told differently.
All right. Thank you, Professor Dindo, for so kindly answering the questions. So that ends our question and answer for the open forum. Now, let's proceed to the response of LCP Arena, followed by LCP Louis, and then the adjournment. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Dindo Manhit, for giving us really a deeper understanding of what happened to us in this elections the past 10 days. And well, actually the whole campaign period since last year. Really goes to show how important science is in this day and age. People say, how could the science really predict that? People were doubting a lot of the surveys, and all that. And I say, it's actually like predicting the weather. Before, every time Pag-asa or anyone would predict the weather, it would be so far off. But now there's so much more, credibility when they predict the weather. And in the same manner, when you look at surveys, you can really see how much closer, outcomes are with those surveys. And so when you look at the need for science, for us to believe in science, and we also go back to education. It's like, how can we educate our people even more to be in STEM, in the science, the math. And I guess Professor Dindo was, were you valedictorian, or did you have really high grades in math and science? But anyway, it's something that you study, right? And maybe not in school, maybe after, but you start there. You start with that. And I think that's really something that we should really focus on in our country. One thing also that he said that I really believe in is that we need to look beyond the elections. We need to look strategically at our country, how we can actually go beyond what we are today. We want change. It doesn't stop at the elections, when somebody is elected, when the president is elected, vice president, and whoever. It's something that we need to continue day to day, every day. But we need to look at it really strategically. We cannot just say, okay, this program will do this, and it will help, some lives. But it's different when you look at the goal, you look at the vision. The Philippines has this Ambition 2040, and wherein, you have you want to do things for jobs, for education, for health, for all of that. We should all rally behind, all of this programs. As he also said that the private sector has to be involved, has to work together with government. We have to continue to be vigilant about, government, what government does, but we have to also see how can we work together with them. And so, yeah, I just, sorry. I just want to say thank you so much for all this. And I believe that you have a big role to play in the next, years. The science that you work with. I'd like that to be used, maybe not just for political campaigns, no, but even more for like the programs that we do in Rotary, no. We really need to look at all of this strategically based on the evidence, no, based on science, no. And so I hope we can work together. All our Rotary clubs can work together with you and your group, no, on that. I'd also like to use this opportunity to thank everyone who were engaged in the Philippine elections. Our chosen candidates may have won or lost, but it's truly the Philippines who won by getting us all involved. Let's all continue to care and be involved in our country's present and future outcomes by doing what we do best. And for me, at the Knowledge Channel Foundation, it's educating our kids, their teachers, and caregivers through our various media and technology platforms. And may our new leaders shine their light on the lives of the Filipino children and communities and use their power to truly empower and educate our children. And for our Rotary clubs and Rotary as a whole, it is that we continue to serve, to change lives. May our new leaders be true partners in service of the country and the poor. The fight for change does not only occur during elections, as mentioned. It must be our daily commitment. Our love and service to the people will continue. It's been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you so much, the Rotary Club of Makati. Mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thank you, Professor Dindo, for such a very interesting talk. I was spanning the faces of the people here inside the room. They were really immersed. They were really immersed at your lecture. I have always seen in past electoral exercises, including this most recent one, of candidates always bringing up that Truman upset George Dewey in the US presidential elections in 1948, and using the Chicago Tribune banner headline in its early edition, which turned out to be false. They would say that survey polls were not really accurate. To the uninitiated in the US presidential polls in 1948, the Chicago Tribune came up with a screaming headline, "Dewey wins," based on surveys showing that he was a cinch to win. And as it turns out, the US electorate went for Truman. But that 1948 aberration in the US, to my knowledge, has not been replicated here, at very least at the presidential elections. Yet, candidates at the tail end of the surveys would repeatedly bring that Truman upset up as a message of hope for their supporters to not give up, despite what the surveys say. But the writing was on the wall. The pre-election surveys were already telling us the probable outcome of the elections, but we could not just believe that not only was the presumptive leader in the surveys who was leading his closest contender by a wide margin, but that he was touted to be receiving majority of the votes, not just mere plurality, but majority, something which we have not seen for quite a while. And so that particular survey film was pilloried for spreading false survey results. But as it turns out, the pre-election surveys were spot on. Yes, there is science behind the surveys. And as Professor Dindo said, the surveys won over the drones, or science prevailed over the drones. Now that the actual results seem to reflect what the pre-election surveys say, do we see Professor Dindo in future electoral exercises the capitulation or the withdrawal of candidates whose positions in the surveys do not favor them? Will those lagging behind pre-election surveys in future elections stop claiming that the surveys do not reflect the number and crowds they are able to muster in their campaign rallies? I read in an article that election is all about science, perception, and logistics, and that we should stop romanticizing any campaign. These are the same elements that go into a credible polling survey: science, perception, and logistics. But I also believe that a great deal of that element of perception was built from years of preparation of the candidate that was leading the surveys. And the surveys did validate the effectiveness and the efficacy of that preparation. After all, it's real politics, like it or not, that still lords over idealism in the way we elect our leaders here. And that, I think, was a core message of the surveys. So some of us may have really barked up the wrong tree by taking to task the accuracy of the surveys. Now, we just have to move on and be vigilant and see to it that our newly elected leaders will indeed start to govern. For giving us your time, Professor Dindo, please accept our tokens of appreciation. First, we are giving you this 55th edition of our coffee table book entitled A Resolute Spirit of Service, published and featuring the milestones of the Rotary Club of Makati for the past 55 years. And you may enjoy reading that coffee table book with this fine bottle of wine. Also, we are giving you this plaque of appreciation, which has an embossed replica of a steel plate on a reef bud that will be planted in the Sea of Narvacan. It has your name on it, and this is pursuant to our major Rotary 7th area of focus, which is on the environment protection.
Thank you so much.
So now may I invite my classmate Rina to adjourn the meeting in behalf of her club.
Thanks, Louis, classmate Louis. Before I adjourn the meeting, I'd like to also present to Professor Manhit our token of appreciation. It's virtual. It's a certificate. Expressing our appreciation to Professor Victor Andres Dindo Manhit. We are giving you one seedling planted in your name. I don't know if you can see it there. It says Prof. Dindo Manhit. This is a mangrove propagule in Barangay Lagadlarin in Lobo, Batangas. So we're also inviting you to take a look at that propagule one day when we go. Yeah. And you're also all invited to come with us. So on behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati Premier District, I adjourn this meeting.
In behalf of the great Rotary Club of Makati, this meeting is adjourned.